Wanted everyone to personalize this conversation we're going to have tonight about the old Black Canyon Highway. It's a personal story to me, and I know it's a personal story to many others. Actually, there's a young lady here, Katie, brought me a copy of her great-grandfather's diary, which is about a very early trip across Arizona in 1892. And it actually speaks to one of the topics I'm going to talk about tonight when we talk about the Black Canyon Highway. And highways in my life and highways in your life. My name is Stuart Rosebrook. I am on the board here at Western Heritage Center. And I'm a public historian. And a forum like this helps me continue to bring the stories of history to you, the public, the supporters here that support Western Heritage here in Prescott. And one reason that I pursued my craft as a writer and as a historian. And a little background on me, I grew up in Los Angeles. My father was a writer, but he has deep roots here in Yavapai County. And we spent a lot of time growing up. He grew up here in Yavapai County, and I spent a lot of time in my childhood and our family coming here to Prescott and Yavapai County. And it ties into why we're talking about the Black Canyon Highway and your highways to history. As a public historian, that song came out in the early 1970s. If we kept playing it, I think we all would have been singing along. But when I first heard that song, it tied into the stories that I had heard from my father growing up. I was 10 years old in 1973, and he had a dual coastal childhood. He grew up in Virginia and New York, and he grew up here on the Orem Ranch in Yavapai County. And part of his story that we heard a great deal of were the roads, his highways to history. The highways of the Blue Ridge in Virginia, the red dirt roads here in Arizona that led him back and forth across Yavapai County into Prescott. And so I want each of you tonight to think about your highways to history and the fact that your story is important. And the story that I'm going to talk about tonight, and I wanted this map up here tonight to kind of set the stage. A lot of times when you hear stories about Prescott, Arizona and our past, we focus a lot about the 19th century and earlier. But this is a story that comes all the way up to the present day. And many of you have experienced it in the last few months as you're driving up and down the old Black Canyon Highway, I-17, as they're rebuilding it and they're widening it because the corridors of commerce and community continue to grow along I-17, and we're going to get into the roots of that here in a moment. Here, I called Bob Bell, who I work for, and you've heard him speak here, and I thought I'd share this story. So I called Bob. He grew up in Kingman, which is way up over here on the map, right? So he grew up in Kingman when it was Route 66. His family, his mom was from Mojave County. He grew up in Kingman. His father ran a gas station right on Route 66. And I said, Bob, how did you get to Phoenix? What are your earliest memories of coming to Phoenix? And he says, those Prescott people, we were in Kingman, and when I was a little kid, he said, it was just a dirt road from Wickenburg to Kingman. There was people on the Arizona Highway Commission that didn't want the highway built from Wickenburg through Wiki up to Kingman. They wanted us to go to Ash Fork and down through Prescott. And he said, I was a little over 10 years old or so, and they finally got a commissioner who would vote for the highway to be built from Kingman to Wickenburg. So I said, well, when did you start driving up 17? He said, well, probably wasn't until the late 60s, early 70s, when he'd finished at U of A, and he said the highway was finished from Tucson to Phoenix, was finished through the Durango Curve, and then he said it was like Disneyland. You hit that old Black Canyon, boom, all the way up the highway, up north into northern Arizona. But what we're going to discover is highways in Arizona don't just happen overnight, and there's a lot of politics that decide which direction those highways go. And right now, we are in a point in time in history where we're watching how our highways are going to change. And that Highway 93, that it took for years for that to be built from Kingman to Wickenburg, that's going to be the new interstate. That's going to be I-11. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that because there were some very strong men and women, especially one strong woman named Grace Sparks, who helped get 89 built and bypass the old Black Canyon Highway. Highways are very romantic, and I think they bring back a lot of memories, but they also help define our communities. So growing up, a quote here from my dad, who said, "See that dirt road down there? That's the road they used to drive me on to get to the ranch when I was a boy your age, father to son, sometime in the early 1970s. What he's talking about is this highway here, okay? He was sent out to Orem School in 1945. It was not paved from Phoenix to Prescott until the mid-1950s. You can go over to Charlotte Hall and you'll see a monument there that is dedicated the day that the highway was completed, directly from Phoenix to Prescott. But if you keep going north here to Cordis Junction all the way to Camp Verde, and we'll get into this a little bit later, that was not completed until 1959. So prior to 1959, if you lived anywhere in this part of Yavapai County, north of Orem Ranch, Camp Verde, Sedona, Jerome, you had to come over Jerome to Prescott to get to Phoenix. And if you were at Orem Ranch, you took the dirt road to Cherry over to Camp Verde. That's 1959 that was completed. Mr. Kel Fox, you see his ranch up there near Munns Park, he told me in 1994 at a conference, he said, "Stuart, we were so excited for that road to be finished between Phoenix and Flagstaff. We had a barbecue, we put a beef on a spit, and we had an all-day fiesta celebrating that highway."